$450 billion. That's what the four biggest AI companies are set to spend next year. And somehow, this same week, the same outlets told you the whole industry is collapsing. Both stories ran in the same news cycle, about the same companies, and only one of them can be true. Here's the part nobody led with. Nothing actually broke. No model failed, no firm folded. What broke was the wiring between a real number and the scary sentence wrapped around it. Stay with me, because once you see that trick, you can't unsee it. Look at what actually crossed the wire. A major search giant had its worst stock day in over a year. 4 top AI researchers walked out in 6 days. A prediction market on OpenAI's next model cratered from 83% down to 18%. A Chinese model supposedly seized 60% of one platform. Each fact is true on its own. Each got packaged into a story about collapse. Stack them together and your brain does the rest. The whole thing must be falling apart. Here's the framework I want you to carry into every one of these stories. Attention is the scarcest resource in media. And the price of attention is outrage. A headline doesn't get paid for being accurate. It gets paid for being clicked. So every editor faces the same incentive. Take a fact that is genuinely true, and frame it at the most alarming angle that fact can legally support. The fact stays real. The framing does the lying. That split is the entire game, and the framing has a tell. It almost always skips one question. Compared to what? That stock fell hard, yes. But it fell from an all-time high it had set just 5 weeks earlier. Strip the baseline away and a pullback looks like a crash. Keep the baseline, and it's a stock giving back part of a 60% run. Same number, opposite story. The starting point is the very first thing a panic headline deletes, because it's the thing that calms you down. Now watch where these claims are actually born. That OpenAI delay story this week didn't come from OpenAI. It came from Polymarket, a site where strangers bet real money on whether GPT 5.6 ships by a certain date. Those odds slid from 83 to 18%. That's a real, observable number. But it measures gamblers' confidence, not OpenAI's roadmap. The company never promised a launch date. The bet did. And the bet got reported as if the company had missed its own deadline. This is the sleight of hand at the center of it all. A headline says GPT 5.6 is delayed, and your mind hears that a company missed a deadline. It didn't. There was no deadline, only a wager that one might exist. Reporting a prediction market, as if it were a press release, is like quoting the betting line on a game and calling it the final score. The two have nothing to do with each other. Yet that exact framing ran almost everywhere this week. Take the talent exits. Google is losing its brains makes a clean, terrifying headline. The truth is messier and far less dramatic. Yes, the researcher who co-authored the Transformer left for OpenAI, and a Nobel laureate behind AlphaFold went to Anthropic. Real losses. But that same company still plans to spend roughly $190 billion on AI this year. For departures from a workforce of nearly 200,000 people is a story, just not the one you read. And here's where it gets genuinely strange. The same week headlines buried that company for falling behind. The real worry on Wall Street was the exact opposite, that it's spending too much, not too little. The whole industry's 2026 capital budget just crossed $450 billion across the Big Four. Wait until you see how that one fact flips the entire story you've been told on its head. Look at Microsoft. It's on track to spend roughly $97 billion while booking about $37 billion in AI revenue. That's around 38 cents coming back for every dollar going in. That is the actual tension in this market. Not is AI collapsing, but can anyone earn back what they're pouring in? That's a slower, harder, far less clickable question. So it loses every single headline to one short, loud word: crash. Boring truth never beats a scary verb. So let's run these headlines through one clean filter and watch them change shape in front of you. Headline 1. AI bubble bursts as Nasdaq plunges. The truth. The Nasdaq slipped about 2% in a single midweek session, after climbing for months. One red day inside a long green year is not a bubble bursting. It's a Wednesday. The word plunge did all the heavy lifting, and the surrounding 12 months of gains quietly vanished from the sentence. Headline 2. China's DeepSeek seizes 60% of the market. The truth. 60% of usage on one developer routing platform, driven almost entirely by price. DeepSeek's model runs near 40 cents per million tokens. The premium American model runs about $5. People send cheap experiments to the cheapest engine. Cheapest and winning are not the same word. The denominator, one platform, mostly hobbyist traffic, got quietly amputated so the number could sound like global conquest. Headline 3. Anthropic's new tool wipes out Figma. Figma is down roughly 40%, true. But that decline stretches across the entire year. Not the afternoon Anthropic shipped a design feature. Pinning a 12-month slide on a single launch is how a headline manufactures cause out of pure coincidence. Two things happening near each other in time is not one thing causing the other. That's the oldest trick in the deck, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Notice the pattern yet? Every single headline takes a genuinely real number and amputates its context. The baseline, the denominator, the timeline, the source. Cut away the context and any fact can be aimed at any conclusion you like. And that brings us to the strangest example of all. The story running right now tonight, that nearly everyone reported completely backwards. Today, June 27th, OpenAI quietly retired GPT 4.5 from ChatGPT. Some feeds framed it as OpenAI kills its model, a company shrinking, cutting its losses in retreat. Now look at what actually happens under the hood. Every existing conversation automatically migrates to GPT 5.5, a newer and stronger model. Users didn't lose a thing. They got upgraded. Automatically, instantly, for free. A completely routine sunset got dressed up in the costume of a corporate collapse. Does that honestly sound like a company in crisis to you? Confidently sunsetting last year's flagship, because this year's model is simply better, is the precise opposite of falling behind. But OpenAI upgrades everyone for free doesn't trend. OpenAI kills its model the same week it falls behind absolutely does. The real story was the calmer, more boring facts sitting in plain sight on their own product page. The one nobody bothered to click. So here is the reveal. Across all 5 of these headlines, the lie is never hiding in the numbers. It's hiding in the verbs and the context they delete. Plunge, seize, kill, lose. Swap each loud, violent verb for what literally, factually happened, and every disaster shrinks back down to a normal week in a young, expensive industry burning cash to find out who's right. The numbers were true. The story built on top of them was sold. So how do you read AI news without getting played? 3 filters. First, compared to what? Always demand the baseline. A drop from a record high and a drop into a genuine crisis look completely identical on a chart. Until you check where the line actually started. Most of the time, that single question alone is enough to defuse the whole headline before it ever scares you. Second, who is the source, a fact or a forecast? A company's own announcement is a fact. A betting market, an analyst's price target, an anonymous leak. That's a forecast wearing a fact's clothing. Third, what's the denominator? 60% of what? Over what window? Measured by whom? If a headline refuses to tell you, it's hiding the answer. And it's hiding it precisely because the honest answer is boring. And that one number I promised you at the very start. The thread running underneath this entire week of doom? It was 18%. Not OpenAI's performance, not its revenue, not a benchmark score. The odds on a gambling site that one model ships by tomorrow. 5 collapse headlines were built on a wager between strangers. The numbers were real. The fear was manufactured and sold to you. Read the verbs, find the baseline, check the source. And the scariest week in AI quietly turns back into an ordinary one. Heavy stuff worth a second watch. Like and subscribe if you want more of this. We'll be back soon.